What do you say, everybody? Welcome to Elephant in the Room with Jay Coker. I'm Mick Gillispie. We talk about the latest issues at Alabama, including this kick-ass recruiting class. Make sure that you like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Let's get right into it. Another big weekend of recruiting for Alabama. Every time you turn around, they're adding someone, and it was late last night that London Simmons from Flowood, Mississippi, big defensive lineman committed to Alabama. This is a regular occurrence now for this staff as they continue to build up their recruiting class, but you can never have enough of those interior linemen.
No, I always say the most important part of football really is the line of scrimmage. The athletes, you can get a lot of athletes. That's what Deion Sanders, he was talking about. I mean, there's a certain degree of truth there. That athletes, you can find them anywhere. I think, in some cases that's true. I mean, Alabama usually gets the athletes that are better than everybody else, but those interior linemen, guys with size and athleticism, you don't just go find those guys. I mean, there's a finite number of those guys, and they make or break your team on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, right. And I can remember Mike Johnson, our friend Mike Johnson, who's a two-time All-American and won the national championship in 2009 with Alabama, talking about you win and lose football games with the interior players. And then when you look at a lot of teams that don't succeed, it's because they're not good enough in the interior. Now, obviously you were a quarterback, and that's a really important position too. But why are the interior guys so important?
Well, because, I think if you can run the ball, you've got a chance to win games no matter what. Teams that live and die, throwing the ball, spreading it around, it makes you explosive, and you win games that you probably shouldn't win. But to be consistent, a consistent team that wins a lot of games, you got to be physical and dominant up front. And there's a lot less that goes into – don't get me wrong. Running the ball is obviously very technical. You got to be very sound and disciplined. But it really comes down to physicality when you can run the ball. And physicality comes from big guys that are really athletic. And you can be consistent as long as you show up and play hard. I think throwing the ball, there's a lot less inconsistency there. Guys make great plays. You got more people involved. A lot more things have to go right, to complete, a drive where you're running 12 plays and throwing the ball 9 times out of those 12. I just believe in kind of old school. Control the line of scrimmage, be able to run the football, and then, let your pass game feed off that run game.
Yeah, and I think that's what he was saying too. You got to be able to make tackles up front. You got to be able to put pressure on the opposing quarterback. And this as well as anyone. I don't care if it's Tom Brady or any quarterback. I guess Joe Montana. If you don't have time to throw the football, if you don't have time to sit in the pocket and at least scan the field, it's really hard to play that position. And that with the teams that have that defensive line pushing are the teams that are hard to beat in my mind.
Oh, yeah. I've said for the longest time, quarterback play is all dependent on who you got around you. Now look, I think winning and losing games comes down to some key throws that quarterbacks make. When you're playing teams that are as good as you are or evenly matched, you got to be able to throw the football and make plays in crunch time. But consistently winning is all about the guys around you and your support system. There's very few guys that can just come in and at the college level. I don't know if I've seen. I think we've talked about this before. Cam Newton to me is one of the only guys I've ever seen come in and just dominate and win games almost by himself in 2011. Now he had Michael Dyer and some key players on offense, but if it's not for Cam Newton that year, I think they won like 3 games the next year. He just completely transformed that team and that program for a year. Just never seen anything like it. But outside of that, you do not see teams quarterbacks just take over a game and will their team to win on that scale. And you got to have good players around you.
Yeah, well, that's what they're doing right now. Another thing that I thought of when London Simmons committed to Alabama on Sunday was the path that it took for him to get the offer to Alabama. This was a guy that was a 3-star. Some publications didn't even have him listed, on there. And then Alabama was like the second major team to come in and say, hey, you know what? We want this guy. We're going to give him a scholarship offer. I think it was NC State and maybe like Jackson State. And then all of a sudden Alabama came in and everyone started throwing commitments his way, and he's gotten a pile of them. And I just thought about you, and you talked about Florida State, like 1 minute, no, who's this guy? And the next minute you're like, the hottest thing going.
It's funny, man. Once one coach that everyone respects makes an offer, and all of a sudden the red carpet just gets rolled out. And that's why, and I was so thankful to Jimbo because, had he not offered me I had never met Jimbo before. I never met Jimbo. I never met Coach Craig. I mean, I went to a camp and threw for 3 hours and I got an offer, and that was my first big time D1 offer. I mean, I had Arkansas State, but outside of that, that was it. So for him to do that, I mean, that was, you think about the belief he's gotten himself, to do that and just offer me after just watching me for a couple hours. I couldn't believe it. And so, it was very hard for me to entertain anything else outside of Florida State because somebody believes in you like that. I mean, how can you not respect it and appreciate it,
Yeah. No, I mean,
and you learn a lot by, I mean, I was going to Ole Miss was showing me the most interest from a SEC perspective prior to that. And I thought they were going to offer me. I was going to a lot of camps, a lot of junior days. I threw really well at their camp. And I left with no offer, and I was very surprised just based on the conversations we had. And then to just go to that Florida State camp and them offer me like that without ever speaking to me before, I just couldn't believe it.
Go back to Ole Miss. Who was the coach there at the time? Was it Hugh Freeze? And then, what is that like? I mean, you just keep kind of staying in contact with the coaches, but you're just waiting for an offer and you never get it?
Yeah, I mean, no, it was Houston Nutt. And,
okay.
And Dave Rader was the OC at that time. And I was working with David Morris, and he was a former Ole Miss guy, played at Ole Miss, and so he knew some people there. I mean, he wasn't pushing me in that direction at all, but it was just trying to help me, and so we were going back and forth talking a lot, and again, thought that was a done deal. I'd have that offer. They came to my spring game. It was, I was, when I left that facility without an offer, I was pretty crushed because, I just thought, again, it was a done deal, and I loved Ole Miss. I loved visiting there. At that time, I had no other offers outside of Arkansas State, which Hugh Freeze actually offered me first when he was at Arkansas State.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Yeah. He was great. And, it just fell through, and my dad was just taking me to camps, and David Morris at QB Country just helped guide us through it. And, we left Florida State or Tallahassee in just disbelief. And I think, actually I left with my mom from that camp. Dad drove over there and was watching, and my dad was so excited. He was calling everybody on his phone. He ran out of gas on I-10 coming to Mobile because he forgot to look.
That's so cool, man. I guess at that point, scouts are just scouts. I know scouts from baseball, being someone that's watched thousands of baseball games, and there's just guys that can watch players and project what guys can do. And it's not always based on experience with the player. They can just look at the body type. They can look at the release, the way that someone throws, the way that someone swings a bat, and just say, hey, you know what? I'd take a risk on this guy, or, hey, this guy's going to be a pretty good player.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I honestly, I think Jimbo is, and it's like Coach Saban said. Well, Jimbo said it, and I believe him because it happened. But Jimbo said you'll get an offer from Alabama probably in the next week, and he goes just because Coach Saban he will offer the quarterbacks an offer, and you look at Jimbo's history with quarterbacks. I mean, everybody that he coaches that plays a quarterback position ends up being doing pretty well and turns into a pretty good NFL product. I know there's a few towards the end at A&M that didn't quite work out like his resume at Florida State, but when he has a quarterback come out there and play, man, they're usually pretty good players.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And he's able to develop guys too. Well, he was. Now he's not coaching, but maybe he'll be back in the game again. Another guy I wanted to talk about, another guy from Mississippi, from Quitman, Mississippi, that was in town in Tuscaloosa this past weekend was A.K. Deere. He's a 4-star running back. I think there's a chance he could be a 5-star running back. He is a super, super fast and can be sometimes physical running back. He's an Ole Miss commitment, but he was in Tuscaloosa. Daniel Hill, who's a running back from Meridian, was there helping recruit him. And then, of course, our guy, Ryan Williams from down here in L.A. and Lower Alabama from Saraland. This guy, I can't not love Hollywood Williams, man. It's like he's just got this infectious smile. You can feel his personality. And he's one of the guys that's helping recruit to try to get some of these players. We talked about him trying to get a guy to flip. Talking about Alford, the 5-star that's going to right now going to Ohio State, and he's talking about flip, and then now he's working on Deere. But a couple things, and I guess it just starts with your thoughts on seeing someone like Ryan Williams, who hasn't even played in a game yet, but comes to Alabama. His commitment was such a big deal for Coach DeBoer, and then not just to take the commitment and be happy with that, but to actually go out there and try to help the program get better.
Yeah, I mean, he's showing a lot of off the field kind of intangibles that to me lend me to believe that he's going to be a hell of a leader on that team. And I don't see him not playing year one a lot and playing a big role. But just because when you have that kind of influence as a young player, I mean, Hollywood fits. He fits the bill because he seems to have that personality. Kind of lights up a room when he's around, and when you have that kind of just infectious presence, I think you can, even without doing a terrible amount on the field, you get the guys motivated, and you again affect the players around you, and that's what the best do. So you're kind of already seeing that with him, and then to take over pretty big role from a recruiting standpoint. Hey, man, I think he needs to get some NIL money for what he's doing on the side.
Trying to get him paid. Are you his agent now? Advocate? These guys all have agents and advocates now. Is that what? Look at you right now. You're like Jerry Maguire. I feel like I'm hanging out with Jerry. Show me the money.
Show me the money.
You ever thought about doing that?
No. I mean,
a lot of great agents are former players.
Yeah, I tell you, if I was going to do it, I'd try to get an internship from old Jimmy Sexton. He's got it figured out, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He pretty much owns the market. He sets the price. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's really had an amazing career. And like he seems to pick like, all right, well, Saban's leaving, so here's the next guy, because he represents so many of these top-notch coaches, right?
Oh, yeah. He knows more about what's going on than anybody.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure about 90% of the rumors that get started are probably from him.
He's mastered the game, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's right.
When you were playing, well, let's go through this with you. When you were a high school guy and you were coming to town on a recruiting visit, I guess because of the way that you were kind of startled by the oh my gosh, I mean, Florida State's giving me an offer. Maybe you weren't pushed as hard as maybe you might have done as a player to other guys that you wanted to get. But give me both sides of the coin here. What's it like as a player when you come in and you're kind of assigned a couple of guys, or a couple of guys just take, the time to get to know you? Ryan Anderson was talking about how he basically told Shank anything he wanted to hear to get him to go to Alabama. Just a pretty funny story. He's like,
I had Shank on my visit to Florida State. You remember that?
Yeah, but you didn't have Ryan telling you everything.
Well, that's what I was like, I need to get Ryan to come help me sell insurance, man.
Everybody loves Ryan, though. I mean, like, he just say something funny real quick, and then after that, he came to my house, and my wife loved him that fast. He gave her a hug before she even had a chance to even know him, and she's like, "I love that guy." Just a great dude. He just has that you can feel this coming out. But I'm sure when you're recruiting, you got to have that, man. You want to have those guys to make that personal connection, because you're going to go to war with these guys, man. Football can be a war.
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of like I told you that story that Denzel Duvall was telling me, and he was getting on to the he's at the school right now, and anyway, he was talking to Bryce Young one day, and it was kind of an old head, I guess, remark, but Bryce Young was telling him that his team would beat us in 2016, and Denzel's giving it back to him, and Bryce said, "Oh, we're better than y'all." Yeah, and Denzel's like, "Bryce, it doesn't matter." He's like, "The difference between us and y'all is that we would have died on that field before we lost, or before we'd have died for each other out there. Y'all wouldn't do that, And that was a mentality we had, and it made it great. It comes down to it. I don't know. When I ran the ball, that's how I felt. I don't know if I'd have taken it that far, but that's how I felt back in the day. So, you go out there with just reckless abandon, with no care for your body, because you love the guys next to you. It makes a difference. You play way over your head a lot of times.
Yeah, right. You go out there. But so when you would go to, when guys would come to town, how often were you part of the group of guys that would recruit players? Was there someone that you were really, really trying to get to come to Alabama or Florida State? Like, either way, either place. Like, and what was that experience like? How'd you connect with these guys? Did you take
it always depended. Usually I think the coaches picked a player that fit with the family that was coming into town.
Did you hear what I said?
No.
I said, did you take them to strip clubs or give them cash? Did you give them a Lamborghini? All right, I'm just kidding. Go back to telling, so they're going to be like, Nick, be quiet. All right, it's good.
No, I think the coaches, they usually try to fit you up with a family that's similar to yours,
Yeah.
And so, like, I tended to get the kid with a mom that was like really, really strong, like no bullshit mom.
Yeah.
And so I'd just go in there and I'd just be honest with them, they if they asked me whatever, I'd just be totally honest. And there was probably a couple where they were like, "All right, we don't need Jake to be around anymore."
They needed more of that Ryan technique. Less Jake. Hey,
what if Richie...
no more Coker. Ryan, how busy are you, man? We got somebody.
Sometimes you get a, well, what if Richie wants this and this? I was just like, well, Richie probably doesn't need to come here.
Oh my God, that's funny. Was any of those guys? Did any of them turn out to be like star players? Like you turned away like somebody, and you see them on Saturdays on other teams, like. You're like, well, shit.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
No one you're gonna admit to.
At that time, my give a shit level was way further down here, and so I just was pretty honest. And hey, if you wanted to come on. If not, I mean,
We don't need you.
They're going to fill up a roster with great players anyway.
Oh my goodness, man! All right.
I mean, because honestly, like again, when Coach Saban was around, it was literally you'd just be like, I mean, you can come here and play. If not, there'll be another guy that's going to take your spot and probably be in the NFL. So,
yeah.
What else do you want me to tell you?
Right.
You got it or you don't.
Well, see, and I think that's good, and I hope that we don't lose that, because the toughest thing that you have, and I'm going to get to MyBookie.ag here in a second, but the toughest thing you have on teams with a lot of talent are egos and personalities, and the way that you tame those is by having someone else that's just as good or close to it that's behind you.
Yeah,
because you're always working to keep that person from taking your job. And that's what competition breeds, man. It breeds success because, or if you don't have that in check, then it doesn't matter how much talent you have, things can fall apart.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, I think defined leadership within a team is huge. I mean, guys like Jalen Milroe, I mean, he needs to be running everything this offseason and needs to be one of those defined leaders.
Yep.
And Malachi Moore and a couple of those guys. I mean, a guy like that doesn't really need – I mean, he's in competition with himself, honestly, at this point, Not to say I think Ty Simpson is going to be a hell of a quarterback, and we've never really seen him in a real defining moment yet, but I think he will thrive when it comes. I mean, but you got to have depth. You're not going to be that good if you just got 22 good starters that are elite and there's nobody behind them. I mean, you got to realize that as you're an older player that you got to have guys behind you that have to be really good, and you got to help them through the process, because if not, and you go down, somebody goes down, I mean, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's part of just, when you go to Alabama, when you go to Florida State, when you go to Texas, I mean, these guys, a lot of them, I think for the most part, they realize that, you got to be, pretty mentally tough and pretty special from a talent standpoint to play. And it's going to take a lot, and it's going to be a mental grind. And again, a lot of those guys get weeded out by the time that third, fourth year rolls around, and the elite guys stay. And so, it is what it is. But if you want a good, solid program that's going to last for a long time, you got to every year, each recruiting class has to be the best of the best. And the players know that for the most. I mean, that you may have a few, but a lot of times those guys don't last.
Yeah, no, I got you. What I want to tell you guys is this. We're brought to you by MyBookie.ag, promo code next round. We've all been there before. A weekend trip to the casino canceled because real life came calling. MyBookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game. Dive into a truly realistic casino experience featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action is in your hands and you don't even have to wear pants. Start at MyBookie today with a generous sign-up bonus using the promo code NEXTROUND, and a revamped loyalty program ensures a host of exclusive VIP perks. The more you play, the more you win, only with MyBookie. All right, hey, big announcement here. I got a ticket to the Rickwood game, and I'm so fired up, man. And I had to give you a little background on this, but it is obviously Rickwood Field in Birmingham, the oldest professional ballpark in the United States, and it's the home of the the Birmingham Black Barons back when they were in the Negro Leagues. It's a big deal. Satchel Paige played there. Josh Gibson played there, but a lot of other players did too. It wasn't just the Negro Leagues that played there. Babe Ruth played there. You know, I think Ted Williams played there. Ty Cobb played there. I mean, this is such a big deal for our city. It's the first time ever that a Major League Baseball regular season game is being played in the state of Alabama. And what is really, truly amazing about this is it's also baseball's way of celebrating the great Willie Mays. Willie Mays is from Birmingham, Fairfield area. He is maybe baseball's best all-time player. I mean, it's always been a debate of either him or Babe Ruth, and he's going to be there. So he played for the Black Barons back in the Piper Davis days. And this is cool, man. I mean, I had to tell you, man, I had to pull some strings to get MLB to hook your boy up, but can't wait. Let's go.
I can't believe I'm just learning about Rickwood Field, you know, in 2024. All the history there, I just can't believe that I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's phenomenal. I mean, I broadcasted a couple of games there when the Barons played the Smokies over the years. And before that, when I was a student at Alabama, I played in games there, you know. So really my play-by-play career started as a joke in the bullpens there when the team that I played on actually just happened to be a game there. I was imitating our manager. And then some of the guys on the team and a couple fans and the guys liked it. They thought it was funny. And then it's turned into a career. So long before I thought I was going to be a lawyer back then. So, which I think I'd have been a good lawyer.
Yeah, I think so too.
but miserable, right? But lawyers are miserable. But I'm excited about it. I think this is, you know, baseball in this state is something that isn't as popular now as it used to be. And I feel like that's kind of the problem with the game in general. But with that said, there was a time when Mobile used to host some spring training games. And I told you I have a great relationship with Billy Williams, who's a Cubs Hall of Famer. That's how I know him. And every time I see him, the first thing, I don't care who he's talking to, he'll stop talking to them and look at me, sees me, and it's Roll Tide. And then he's got to come over and talk to me about Alabama. He's the biggest Alabama fan. He's from Whistler, you know, which is down here. Hall of Famer, one of the great Hall of Famers from our area. But he tells a story about being a kid and being in Mobile, and Jackie Robinson and the Brooklyn Dodgers played, I think, the Cleveland Indians in a game. And he was a kid, and he said Jackie walked off the bus, and he said he looked like 10 feet tall to him, you know? And that's why he wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. So I think it's really good honestly, I feel like it's great for Rickwood because Major League Baseball invested so much into the stadium to get it going again, you know, like to revitalize it. I know I'm probably a little more excited than I normally am on things, but this is a big deal to me personally because I'm going to get to go see this in person, a real game. And then this could be the last time that Willie Mays, you know, he's in his 90s now, makes a public appearance, you know, and Babe Ruth went to the Babe Ruth Story, which was a movie about Babe Ruth. And it was, you know, that was his last appearance, you know. I mean, you get older and that's what happens. Maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I am. But it's our chance to tell Willie Mays how much we love and appreciate him. The fact that he's one of our guys.
Yeah. You know, those guys back then were a different breed too. I mean, that was a different level of toughness back then. I mean, now look, I know that, you know, they obviously weren't as specialized back then as I mean, kids nowadays, you know, practicing every day. But those guys just that generation of players. Well, to me, they really put baseball on a map, but I mean, they just played the game in such a way that, I mean, I don't know if anybody was going to be upset about a dirty slide into second base or running through the catcher. You know, I mean, it was just, and they weren't making the money that they're making nowadays, you know, doing it. It just, I I don't know. They played it in a different way. I'm sure they look at it now and shake their head. But,
Yeah. They were tough.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, man. I don't know if you've been watching this College Baseball World Series.
Yes.
But it has been phenomenal.
Yeah. I told you.
Baseball. Did you see that center fielder for Tennessee last night?
Yeah, I did.
I mean, run into that wall, left his eye black on the wall.
Yeah, caught it too.
Oh yeah, gotta love it.
I told you I know Tony, from being up in Knoxville so much, and I like him. And I'm pulling for him. My son's godmother, her son is the broadcaster for Kentucky. So I got ties on Kentucky and Tennessee, so I'm hoping that one of those two teams, I hope they meet for the championship. That'd be great. I was
about to say, how crazy would that be?
Be great. I would love to see Darren get to call a World Series championship. And, and Tony's always been such a good guy. He's a Cubs fan, and, he grew up loving the Cubs. He's been on my broadcasts before. I'll tell you what was genius by him is that they're losing to Florida State. His teams feels like they're out of it. They're a little flat, and he just goes ballistic over something. It was like, you remember in the 8th inning, he's like losing it, and people are like, and I knew what he was doing. He was just looking for something to change the momentum of the game.
Oh yeah.
And it worked, hey, wake up, man. Like in the first game in these World Series is the toughest one. Now, when I was in school with Jim Wells, Alabama was either pushing to get there or in there. And they had a chance to win it in 97 and had a bad break with Roberto Vaz and his ankle, or they probably would have won it. Since then, it's been far and few between in that program. And, we talked about this a couple shows ago. They've got to get tough again because they're just not tough enough. I'm sorry. They're just not. They're not competing to be in the World Series anymore. It's just like, hey, Jim Wells used to talk about not wanting to change the uniforms up because he didn't want a bunch of guys that looked like they walked out of Hibbett's, love that quote. And it's true. You got to be tough to play this game. And I'm watching Tennessee play. LSU didn't even make it, and they're tough. Watching Tennessee, the passion that those guys play with. Kentucky plays with passion, and it's been fun watching.
I'm not a big just flashy isn't my kind of thing. I mean, when they throw that fur coat on and all that, I'm just like shaking my head. But at the same time, I am kind of like, I do love those players that just, they're just total assholes out there. They don't give a damn, just out there ready to whip somebody's ass. And that's, you love playing with guys like that. That's, it just lights a fire under everybody. And it is, again, it drives me crazy seeing all the props and everything, but at the same time, you play with an attitude like that, it makes you feel pretty invincible out there sometimes. And so, I don't particularly like it, got to respect it.
Yeah. Hey, look, I like having a good time. I like guys having fun. I don't mind the bat flips and the coats.
The worst is the guys walking in and, acting all high maintenance out there and being kind of pretty boys. But when you watch guys play with toughness, they're chomping at the bit. They may, somebody pulls something with one of their teammates, they're ready to fight. That kind of, you get away with all that as long as you got that kind of attitude.
That's right.
Now there's some guys that are flopping or, acting like they're all hurt, instead of getting up and finishing out a play. That bothers me. But when you play with that kind of grit, do what you want, I guess.
Yeah, I hear you. I hope Alabama gets to that. Well, look, this was a great show. We'll get back together with all of you guys later this week. But what I want to say is that for Father's Day, Rowback crab shirt came my way. Opened it up. Don't have it on today, but I will be wearing it soon. So pretty happy about that. You guys use the promo code ROOM20 to get 20% off your Crab shirt or your Alabama shirt, your gear at rowback.com. Such good stuff, man. And you get a sticker with it as well. It's quality, man. Like, just feels good wearing
it. Yeah. Hey, they got a lot of collegiate athletes showing off their stuff. Of course, I see it everywhere now, but anyway, I'm not going to start over.
Did you get a good Father's Day gift? Did you get taken care of?
Oh yeah. I got some stuff, some ornamental stuff with all the kids on it, and we had a good time.
Nice. It's camouflage. You got some camouflage gear?
Not this time, but it'll be coming.
Coming soon. All right. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out, getting that comment section. The show has really been growing lately, and we appreciate all of you guys so much for hanging out with us on here and being part of Elephant in the Room, Roll Tide Pods. We will talk to you again soon. For Jake Coker, I'm Mick Gillispie. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.